All right, before I get into the next subsystem, I'm going to show you how to set up a full bot. And we need to do that because in the next subsystem, we'll probably be doing what we would call in-context editing. So here's my chassis part studio. I'm going to add what I would call a reference cube. There's a few different teams that use reference cubes, and it's pretty helpful. So within my full bot, within my chassis, I'm going to go ahead and add a cube that's right here at the origin and sort of just beneath the origin. It's a 1x1 cube. I'm going to create a sketch here on the top plane. I'm going to do a center point rectangle right on the origin. I'm going to make it 1 inch by 1 inch. Size doesn't really matter, but you want it to be consistent from subsystem to subsystem. 1 inch by 1 inch just makes sense. And then lastly, I'm going to extrude that downwards, so it's right there. Okay, so I've got this part here. It's just a reference cube. You'll see what I mean by that later. I'm going to right click and rename that part 10 as reference cube. And I'll put reference cube chassis because I'll have other reference cubes and it's nice to be able to differentiate them. Now I go into my assembly, and remember how I just put my parts in here exactly as they were? That's convenient because now if I click insert and I add my reference cube, where did it go? There it is. It'll be in the correct spot right down there. And I will once again go ahead and just add it to the group of all the parts. Okay, so now my chassis assembly includes a reference cube. Let's go ahead and start making a full bot CAD. We do full bot CADs because we want to be making the subsystems in separate documents, but the full bot lets us see everything together. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new document. This would be one that I'm making, owned by me. Let's call this practice full bot. Create. I just typed it in. Practice full bot. Create. Okay, work that. I'm going to go to my assembly, and I'm going to insert my chassis into my assembly. So click Insert. I'm going to go to Other Documents. Let's look up recently opened. Here we are, Practice Chassis. You need to create a version of your chassis. That way it doesn't update the full bot constantly, just whenever you say it is. So this will be version 1 of my chassis. I'll say create. And later if I want to update it, I have to go into chassis and create another version. Which if you don't know how to do that, feel free to ask. Okay, I'm going to insert in assembly. Let's go to assemblies and insert assembly 1. There we go. And now this is sort of floating around, but because I've got my reference cube, I can say, hey, I'm going to fasten this directly to the origin. And that's where it is in my other document as well. So everything will be relative to that. Okay, let me go ahead and create a version. That's right here, create a version, v1, create. And now let's talk about how we can make another document for a new subsystem that I can then sort of reference this full bot while I'm working. So let's go ahead and go out here. I'm going to create a document. Let's call this practice indexer. I'll make the indexer of this robot. So before I even start making the indexer, it might be nice to know where my other parts are in my robot, like my chassis, for example. So let's start this time by creating my reference cube. I'm going to click Top. I'm going to make my 1x1 cube right here at the origin. I'm going to extrude it downwards. Okay. I'm going to go to my assembly. I'm going to insert it into this assembly. And I'm going to fasten it to the origin right where it was. Okay. And I'm going to create a version of my indexer. Okay. Now let's go back to my full bot CAD. Practice full bot. And right now in my assembly, I have this assembly 1, which is actually my chassis. I need to rename that assembly so it says chassis. That's not good practice. I'm going to go ahead and click Insert from other documents. I now have, let's go back into my recent documents, my practice indexer. And I'm going to insert this assembly. Don't insert the part, insert the assembly. Here we are. Now right now this assembly only includes the reference cube. I'm going to click fastened, and I'm going to fasten this reference cube to the exact same spot as the other one's reference cube. So they all have a cube in the exact same spot in all of their assemblies. What that enables me to do is now go into that assembly, find that reference cube, I can right click it, and I can select Edit in Context. This actually goes back and opens up my indexer document, but now I've got this nice ghost of a chassis that I can use to reference and build parts off of. Now, editing in context is a little bit tricky. You'll need to update your contexts as other things get built, as this chassis gets built up better. But this is a really good trick for now being able to reference things that are outside my document. Okay, so for example, let's start off here by making a couple of cross beams here that my indexer is going to rest on. But I'm going to do that off of my chassis. So I'm going to click Sketch, and now I can select this front face of that chassis, that rail right there. There we go. Let's go ahead and make some center point rectangles. And make these, I'll make this kind of even with this edge here, so kind of like on this punch tube right here. Let's make this, this dimension is 1 inch wide. And I already know it's 2 inches tall because I'm using that piece there. I'm going to go ahead and put in a mirror line here. Actually, it's centered across here, so I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to mirror across the right plane, mirroring that over to there. Ooh, I'm accidentally using this edges here, these dots, so let me go back into Sketch 2. Here's a little trick for you. Disable imprinting. That'll save me. I'll be able to select the whole area now. Imprinting is sort of using the edges of your surface as part of your lines in your sketch. I'm going to extrude this. I'm going to extrude it up to face, and I'm going to use the other face here. And I'm going to have these here. So now I've got these two cross beams that are going to be a good place to mount my indexer, as well as providing extra rigidity to my chassis. Let's end by making these punch tube. So I'm going to select them here, selecting both of them. I'll make these 1/16 wall punch tube. They're not the outside frame, so they don't need to be so thick. Let me double check all my holes. My settings are still left over from the last time I used the punch tube. It looks like these are a 1/2 inch from the edge. That's very important. That looks great. I'm going to finish this right here. At this point, I can keep this context going if I want to keep seeing that, or I can go up to my assembly context and select none. And now I can just start building. If I'm ever curious how this compares to the other parts I've got in my other on my bot, like the chassis or other subsystems, I can go up to my context and bring it back, and I can look at that specific context. So now I've really got a good space to start building my indexer, which maybe I'll do in the next video. All right.